कथामृतं तप्ते जीवनं कविभिरीडितं कल्मषापहं श्रवणमङ्गलं श्रमदाततं भुवि गणन्ति भूरियाजनाः. Your words are like nectar, bringing life to squirt souls. They are praised by poets and remove all sin. They are auspicious to hear, wonderful and exalted. Those who spread these words throughout the world are truly giving souls. Welcome, everyone. We are reading from the chapter, The Master in M, from the Gospel of Ramakrishna, page 280, and it is Monday, August 20th, 1883. And Ramakrishna is in his room at Dakshineshwar. M. Yeah, this was a follow-up of the last time the conversation was about M said, yes, sir, you said that God himself has become everything, the universe and all living beings. Even he who meditates is God. Master, what is more, one cannot meditate unless God wills it. So this is where we're starting now. One can meditate when God makes it possible for one to do so. What do you say? M, true, sir. You feel like that because there is no I in you. When there is no ego, one feels like that. Okay, now, this is a very, very interesting statement. Because we generally think that meditation depends upon self-effort. It depends upon the state of our mind. It depends upon preparation, all sorts of different things. We very rarely would think that one cannot meditate unless God wills it. Now, why will God will for us not to be able to meditate? We don't have to take this so literally. To me, it means that we shouldn't expect to be able to have a good meditation every time we sit for meditation. That it's a rare thing. That if we have a bad meditation, we shouldn't think that we wasted our time, we did something wrong. This is the nature of the mind. When we say God wills it, we can say what Thakur, the expression he liked was the grace of the mind. And when that happens, we don't know. Sometimes the mind is very agitated, and we think it'll be useless to sit for meditation, and yet it becomes quiet. Other times we sit for a long time and the mind runs around. Then sometimes it gets quiet at the very end. So all sorts of different things. But it's very hard to pinpoint exactly why and when and how the mind becomes still and quiet. This is my experience, anyhow. And what does that mean? What is the practical ramification of that? That we can't miss a meditation. That we shouldn't end it too soon. We shouldn't just give up. We shouldn't skip a day, because that may be the day when the mind gets quiet. In Thakur's words, we can say that may be the day when God wills that we have a good meditation, or that's the day when we have the grace of the mind. The grace of the mind means that the mind becomes still and quiet. So it's not exactly in our hands, and yet it is. We have to make effort, but we never know when and why and how the mind will become still and quiet. The mind will become our friend. We won't have to fight the mind. So,
the grace of the mind and the will of the God, are they two different things?
Grace of the mind and the will of God. For a dualist, they're two different things. If we try to get to the point when we talk about the will of God, or we talk about karma, or we talk about the grace of the mind. This is all ways of trying to help us understand that there's something mysterious about cause and effect. That we can't say exactly why things happen the way that they happen. When we say it is somebody's karma, we're giving an explanation that's also not based on any empirical evidence. We have no idea that it's a pure assumption that somebody did something in a past lifetime that would lead them to have some type of bad experience in this lifetime. There's nothing empirical about that. We can't go back and check. We take it on faith. Now there are other people who they won't deny the karma, but they'll say everything is God's will. That also is nothing that we can verify. This is also a spiritual attitude, and take it on faith. Now I make a distinction between taking something on faith and accepting something as a spiritual attitude. If it's a spiritual attitude, we don't even have to take it on faith that it's true. We can just use it as some operative way of looking at the world. That whatever happens is for my good. So I can say that whatever happens is for my good. I don't have to even take it on faith that it's true, but I can operate with that mindset, so that whatever happens to me, I'll take it as something that is beneficial, without knowing why or how, and it'll turn out to be true, or at least it can, or it seems to turn out to be true. But with meditation, I think that the main point here is that there's definitely not any strict cause and effect between even what we do. Suppose we do everything right. We wake up and we take a shower and we read some spiritual thing, and we clear the mind of everything else, and we sit for meditation. We don't have a good meditation. So we don't know why, and I think if we analyze meditation and our minds and everything, and try to see, say out of an hour, we sit for an hour, how many minutes do we have of real concentration or of real devotion, that some real feeling comes? If it's a few minutes, then we can say that we had the grace of the mind, that it was a blessed experience, something like that. Depending on the intensity of it and everything. It's unrealistic to think that we'll be able to do exactly what we want to do in meditation. It's unrealistic to think that, okay, I'll sit in meditation. I won't allow the mind to do anything except repeat the mantra and to visualize the image of the Ishta Devata, whom I feel is seated within my heart, face to face. And no, I won't allow any other thought to come into the mind. It's unrealistic. It won't happen. So we sit in meditation in hopes that the mind will gather together at some point, and that'll bring some joy, and that'll bring some conviction of the truth of everything, and that'll make it worth it. That's what we mean by a good meditation. If we have just a little bit of concentration for a short period of time, and the rest of the time we're at least making an effort, a sincere effort. That sincere effort will yield fruit. That's the important thing, that we're doing it with a devotion and love and sincerity, and really trying our best, even when the mind is wandering. This is called Abhyasa Yoga. 90%, maybe more, of meditation is Abhyasa Yoga. The mind wanders, we bring it back, and wanders, we bring it back. If it stays there for a while, then we're fortunate. So the way Thakur is explaining is that don't think it's all in your hands. He's saying in the will of God, we can say grace of the mind, we can say our good fortune, we can give any explanation, but it's not completely in our hands. So we don't want to miss. This is the main point. We don't want to miss. I have this theory that mostly the wandering of the mind precedes the quiet of the mind. And if we don't sit long enough, we only sit through all of the garbage and everything, and we don't get the mind a chance to get tired of all of that. So this is why meditation involves some struggle and uh, giving enough time, giving enough time, because we go through different if we could graph meditation, we it won't be any straight line. There'll be lots of ups and downs, and then maybe at some point it'll start going up and up and up, and then we feel so the will of God. So this is very interesting way that he puts it. I don't remember Thakur saying this in other places or explaining it exactly this way. One cannot meditate unless God wills it. One can meditate when God makes it possible for one to do so. What do you say? Now, M gives an answer that is a little bit different from the way I've explained it. He says, true, sir. You feel like that because there's no I in you. When there's no ego, one feels like that. We can say, of course, in Thakur's case, when is it that he cannot meditate? I mean, the mind is completely merged in God all of the time. So it doesn't really apply to him. It applies to us. Of course, if we have no sense of I, can the mind still wander? No sense of I, can the mind still wander? Yeah, actually, the mind sometimes, because the mind is wandering so much, we forget even who we are and what we're trying to do. It can be merged in the Ishta Devata, or it can just be merged in some daydream. We can just be daydreaming and forget even. See, we sit for meditation. The mind can be so merged. We feel that yes, we're sitting face to face with the Ishta Devata. We open our eyes. We forgot where we were sitting. Or we can just be daydreaming. Some vacation that we took to the Bahamas, we sat on the beach and everything. We opened our eyes. We said, "Oh, I forgot. I was the whole time I was in the Bahamas." Right? So, sense of I can be gone both times, but the one it's just uh, merging in something higher, and the other it's just the mind is so engrossed in interesting things. The mind likes to be interested. And if we don't allow ourselves to enjoy things physically, the mind will do it mentally. We can enjoy things that way. It's a type of enjoyment. Thinking about enjoyable things, another way of enjoying things.
But Swamiji, is it true that when we are trying to focus the mind or trying to meditate, it's harder? But like when you're listening to a nice bhajan or reading something sometimes, you automatically just go into that mode.
Yeah, we can't compare them. We can't say that. Suppose we say prayer. Whenever I pray, I'm fully focused, right? So we say, so I'll give up meditation because I can't be fully focused. There are different types of things. If I feel great devotion when I listen to music, that doesn't mean that we eliminate all of our other practices. Yeah, meditation is the hardest of all of them.
Why does mind wander less in the morning, more in the evening?
Why does mind wander less in the morning and more in the evening? I don't know if this is universally true, but if it, uh, it, we've had a nighttime to forget everything. We have a little bit of a clean slate, and then we remember what happened all throughout the day. But I don't know, is that true with everybody? I never noticed too much difference. My mind wanders both morning
It
and
does want, but somehow less in the morning. So
I mean, we know if we do a little spiritual reading first, we even take a shower and do all these things. We know these things are very helpful to clear the mind and everything. So the conversation is switching quickly. So M is explaining Thakur's statement because he says there's no I in you. Now Thakur will start talking about the role of the ego. Master, but it is good to have a trace of ego, which makes it possible for a man to feel that he is the servant of God. Thakur, he explains this, and this is also not the way he usually explains it. He usually says that there's going to be a trace of ego. And because there is, let that rascal remain as the servant. Here he's saying it's actually good. Now, does that mean that it would be better than if we have no ego at all? See, no ego, what does it mean, no ego? What we're really talking about is eliminating this tamasic and rajasic ego. Is having a pure sense of I that's identified with the higher self or the servant ego, something like that. But it is good to have a trace of ego, which makes it possible for a man to feel that he is the servant of God. Thakur always says that this is what we cling to in spiritual life. Ashray kora. This is we take shelter in this. This is our refuge. He uses these two words, bhav, that we have a particular spiritual attitude, and he has different keywords. Arokora, and we assume a certain type of personality that will allow us to have that bhava, that relationship, that servant ego, something like that, so that we can establish this connection with God, have a relationship with God. And this is basically what we do in the path of bhakti yoga. Now, this aropkara, to take on the qualities of something that we don't necessarily have. This is what we do in general as a negative thing. When we misidentify ourselves, identify with the body, mind, and senses. But for the devotional path, we take a paradigm, say Hanuman, the servant ego, and we try to feel that we possess the qualities that Hanuman possesses. This is having a relationship and superimposing on ourselves those qualities that allow us to have that type of relationship. Now, for the jnani, can the jnani do the same type of Kumar? Okay. Can we say we want to feel that that relationship is Aham Brahmasmi, I am Brahman? Can we adopt the qualities of Brahman? Huh?
There's no qualities in Brahman.
Okay. Now we can say there are no qualities in Brahman, but if we say that Brahman is first of all the witness, okay? Now I can feel that I'm the witness. Then we can say Brahman Satchidananda. Brahman is goodness. This is pure sattva. Brahman is wisdom, intelligence. Brahman is joy, bliss, Satchidananda. We can superimpose. We can take all of those qualities to feel that we're the witness. This is another type of bhava relationship, and another type of aropa, superimposition. What does it mean to be the witness? We don't judge anybody. We're not affected by things. We're not attached to things. We let things roll off our back. This is a way we can practice that. It doesn't simply mean that I'll just watch everything. If we really think, what does it mean to be a witness? Not constantly, finding fault with other people, judging things, just observing them. Not getting annoyed, not getting happy, everything, because we're not affected by anything.
That means mind is stopped completely.
No, the mind is functioning. The mind is taking on the qualities of the witness. So I'm telling myself that you said something to me. If I want to take this as sadhana, that I'm the witness, then why should I be affected by what somebody says to me? They said something, that's fine. I'm not required to get annoyed or upset or anything just because they said something. That's up to them to say it. It's up to me whether I want to react or not.
So that means your intellect is constantly on alert.
Yeah, non-reaction, keeping it equanimity, seeing the same in all of these, treating everyone the same. I like that verse from the Gita. It says that Brahman is the same. Brahman is nirdosha and samam. If Brahman is free from any faults and blemishes, then I want to feel my oneness, then I have to eliminate all faults and blemishes. I have to be same-sided with everyone. I have to stop judging people, seeing faults and everything. So the Jnani can also do it. It's a very beautiful the spiritual teaching that Thakur has. He puts so much emphasis on this. Act of bhav, arop kote hoy. You have to take refuge in a relationship, which involves taking on the qualities of that ideal. This is why there's a paradigm for all of them. Mother Yashoda for Vatsalya Bhava, Hanuman, and Sudam, and for Sakya Bhava, for the friends of Krishna and everything. So that we can emulate them, Aropkara, to emulate, to take on these qualities. And we do it with the Brahman. It sounds odd, but if the Brahman is just the witness of everything, then I'll try to, and that means not getting involved, not getting upset, nothing. Just like the sand smells in the air is not affected by anything. That we try to do that. That's also we're play acting, role acting, until we realize the truth of it. Today's imagination is tomorrow's realization. That type of thing. So Thakur says, but it is good to have a trace of ego, which makes it possible for a man to feel that he is the servant of God. Ego simply means sense of I. If we don't have that, either we're sleeping, or we're in samadhi, or we're just so engrossed in things that we forgot to reading a book, something like that, then we kind of forget temporarily where we are. As long as a man thinks that it is he who is doing his duties, it is very good for him to feel that God is the master and he God's servant. So we read in Gita that I don't do anything, that only the gunas are working, this and that. And I say to myself, yeah, but I feel like I'm doing it. I don't feel like I've been eliminated from this process, that it's just the gunas of the mind interacting with the gunas of nature. I understand it. There's a nice way of looking at things, the Sankhya model and everything, but I feel that I'm doing it. If somebody says, don't you take any responsibility for what you just said? I say, yeah, I have to take responsibility for it. I can't just say, oh no, the intellect told the mind to tell the tongue to say that. I can't do that because it'll be hypocritical for me. So as long as we feel like that, then we can easily say that, okay, I'm doing it. Let me do everything as an offering to God. Let me do it without attachment. Let me do it without seeking the results. If we don't have a trace of ego, we can't practice that type of karma yoga. We practice the other type, that I don't do anything at all. I'm just a witness, something like that. But this is actually sweeter. That the trace of ego allows us to do everything with love and devotion and as an offering. When one is conscious of doing work, one should establish with God the relationship of servant and master. Now, how about other relationships at other times? Of course, these are fluid things. We shouldn't feel that we're stuck in one relationship. We can also feel that Uh, God is the mother, and we're her child. We can feel that. But at other times when we're working, we can have this, I'm the servant of God. I can do anything with strength and everything. Because the mind goes through different phases and everything. It's good to have one dominant theme. But Thakur practiced all of these things. If we can combine the four yogas, we can also can combine the different bhavas. Not jumping from one to the other, but there's a certain consistency to all of these things. They're all based on converting this baser ego to something higher. And however we do it is helpful. Yeah.
Last class was about 6 qualities of the Lord. What were those 6 qualities?
Yeah, these are different theories that that Shadaishwarya, we read that there are 6 that are the majestic qualities, and then there are 6 with Madhurya, the sweet qualities. These are for the devotees mostly.
It's not for the meditation aspect.
Meditation, it can be done. I actually gave a series of talks on this. There was a very nice article that somebody wrote. See, Bhagavan, Bhagavan means someone who possesses bhagas. Bhagas means parts. So he takes it with all of these 6 Aishwarya and 6 Madhurya qualities of God, and shows how Thakur had all of them. A very nice thing. So yeah, that can be if we like to think of the Divine Mother as possessing power and strength and energy and all of that. At the same time, there's love and sweetness, looking after a child, and all of that. So we have 2 different sets of. So these are the Bhagavan. For some, they'll emphasize the others. Some they'll emphasize the sweet ones. Some the lordly ones. Then M writes, M was always reflecting on the nature of the Supreme Brahman, master to M. Like the Akasha, space. We have Vayu and Akasha, space and air. And sometimes we use the same types of illustrations that air can actually pick up, can carry impurities and things. They can cling to molecules, but not
Vayu
space.
is wind.
But not
right?
space.
Vayu is used for wind, no?
Yeah, wind or air, both. Air, what is the difference? Wind is air that's moving. That's but space has nothing in it. Space is empty. That's the essential, the critical distinction here. That space is empty. Things flow through space, but nothing touches space. You can even catch air in a jar. If you want to analyze, what are the smells and what are the smog and everything, you can, but you can't do it with space. Things move through space. It can't be confined. It can't be caught. That's why this Akasha is the better illustration for Brahman. So master to M. Now, see, M says M was always reflecting on the nature of the Supreme Brahman. So that means that M feels that Thakur knows that he's thinking about that Thakur has been talking about this path of devotion, and now he'll switch to this Jnana Yoga and Vedanta. So in M's mind, that he's thinking, well, Thakur knows that I like this reasoning about Brahman and everything, so he'll switch the topic a little bit. Yeah.
In the same section, sometimes is master, sometimes Muni, sometimes Muni Mohan.
Okay, so the question about M, that he refers to himself in different ways, and whenever he wants to hide himself, so Srima, M, this is what he uses most of the time, but whenever there's anything a little personal, whenever he's talking about, say, when his son died and his wife went half mad and everything, or it's a personal type of question, and then sometimes he'll say Mani Mohan, something like that. Sometimes he simply says a devotee. but we can figure out that it's him. So different ways that he hides himself, but let people know that he's actually asking that question. So we can really see that things that are deeply personal to him, that he won't even. So sometimes he'll just say, one devotee was thinking. I remember the first time I read the gospel, I thought, what nonsense! How does he know that what a person is thinking? Then, of course, later I realized it was him. That's the only way he could know it. So sometimes he wouldn't even say M or money or money one, anything like that. That he would just say a devotee. Like the Akasha, Brahman is without any modification. It has become manifold because of Shakti. So this is the big question. How does the one become the many? If the Brahman is pure awareness, how can space become objects and things? There has to be something that allows transformation to take place, even if it's apparent transformation. And this is a role of Shakti. This is why Thakur says we can't simply have Brahman without Shakti. They have to be understood together. Otherwise, we can't explain anything.
When Thakur says, like, Ambedkar whiteness and Brahman and Shakti, do the Advaita accept that? Because for Advaita, somehow they say there is nothing, so there is no Shakti. Because
They accept it in their own way. Yeah. The Shakti is explained more in terms of Maya, that it's not an actual transformation or anything, but yeah, they have to accept it. They have to accept it. Otherwise, but they take it as secondary. This is why Nirguna Brahman is primary. So Saguna Brahman is secondary, but they can't deny Ishvara, Saguna Brahman. These are all in the scriptures for Shankaracharya. So they accept it, but they don't give the same positive spin to it. And they don't give as realistic an explanation to it. It'll be explained more in terms of some cosmic ignorance or something like that. But they have to accept Maya. So Maya and Shakti, they occupy the same role. They're the things that keep Brahman, Nirguna Brahman, from just remaining Nirguna Brahman, however we understand it. Again, Brahman is like fire, which itself has no color. The fire appears white if you throw a white substance into it, red if you throw a red, black if you throw a black. The three gunas, sattva, rajas, and tamas, belong to Shakti alone. So this is how we have some sliding transition from the concept of Maya to the concept of Shakti to the idea of Prakriti and the three gunas. So we have that interesting verse in the Gita when Sri Krishna talks about this Maya of mine, composed of the three gunas. So it combines all of them. There's a Maya, this some type of divine power, which also leads to delusion. That part of the process of this creation is that we forget our oneness. But at the same time, it has that prakriti aspect. It becomes nature itself. So, this Maya of mind is difficult to transcend.
Swamiji, why do we confuse it so much? My thing is like Brahman with name and form is Maya or whatever Prakriti, but why do we give it so many different names?
It's not so simple. There's a basic difficulty if we start out with the concept that Brahman is one alone, and Brahman is unchanging and everything. Then how do we explain? If we say we bring in Maya, then we have to say that Maya isn't ultimately real. Otherwise, we have two realities. If we say that Shakti belongs to Brahman, then it has some internal distinction within it. It's philosophically, it's there are problems. Philosophically, if we look at all the different schools, we have to conclude that there's no good, simple philosophical way of understanding how the consciousness it can be responsible for this whole universe. Is it through a dream process? Is it through real creation? Is it because there's actually nature separate from it, that its presence has to be there? We have all of these different theories because none of them are without some philosophical flaw. As nice as they may seem, the Advaita Vedanta based a little bit on a trickery. There's a little trick, that if this Maya can disappear, then it was never 100% real to begin with, so we don't have to explain where it comes from. It's a nice philosophical idea, but how satisfying is it to us? Ultimately, I think understanding Maya as some mysterious power at the heart of Brahman is good enough. What else can we do?
So are they just like dry intellectual philosophical concepts, or they realize the truth like that, and that is how they believe it?
It's even a God-realized soul will have a different understanding of things. So we assume that these acharyas and these others, they had their realization. Thakur was unique because he got to the roof and saw all of the different ways of coming up and going down, and tried all of them and found all of them to be true. Others, they knew the path that got them to the roof, and that's what they taught. So, yeah, someone can be in God-realized soul and not fully understand the process of it, and all of that. Doesn't mean that they'll know absolutely everything about different spiritual paths and everything. And yeah, what is the exact role of these acharyas? We wonder sometimes, because they argued so much against each other.
What does sophistry mean?
Sophistry just means clever arguments. That you can defeat somebody with that argument without really establishing the truth of your position or anything. Brahman itself is beyond the three gunas. So we have to use this mystical language. Beyond the three gunas, yet the source of them, the ground of them, both changing and unchanging at the same time. We can understand these things to a certain extent with illustrations. We use this illustration of water, that it's formless, but it always has a form. So it can be two things at the same time. We take the sun. It's pure illumination, but at the same time, it has the power. It has the power to heat things up, to give life, so many other things. So I have no problem with accepting this universe as completely mysterious. I have no problem with that. And Thakur says, who do we think we are that we can understand these things with this little small container of an intellect that we're trying to pour? He says, trying to pour 5 seers of milk into 1 seer pot. We can't do it. Now, is it a problem with our intellect? If our intellect were greater, could we understand? And no, there's something inherently mysterious about this universe. I don't get it at all. why it is, how it is and why it is the way it is.
A beautiful statement Swami is giving the other day in Spy Talks. That he who knows that he does not know it all.
Yeah, this is from the one of the Upanishads. Yeah, he who knows doesn't know. He thinks he knows. Yeah, doesn't know. Who says I don't know? He knows some. Yeah. What Brahman itself is beyond the three gunas. What Brahman is cannot be described. It is beyond words. That which remains after everything is eliminated by the Vedantic process of not this, and which is of the nature of bliss, is Brahman. Now, if we go back to the onion illustration, we start out with this idea that there's something inside that we'll find. And this is the dualistic idea that within the heart of everything, then we'll find either the real self, or we'll find God dwelling within, something like that. For the Advaitin, when we peel off each layer after layer after layer, we find that at the heart of it, empty. There's nothing there. And that space inside, suppose there's a space inside of an onion. I don't know if there is or not. But suppose the onion has a tiny little space there. How do we measure that space? We can measure it because that last layer of the onion is there. When that last layer is gone, how do we measure it? It's infinite. And it was always infinite. So this is what the Advaitin says. What remains is just emptiness, fullness, emptiness. There's nothing there. But it's not a nothingness. It's pure awareness. Because we're peeling off layers of body, mind, senses, all of that, what we're left with when we cease to identify with all of that is just this consciousness itself. But nothing particular about it. And it can't be confined to anything. So what do we learn from that? That even now, the self is not confined within the body. It's not dependent upon the mind. We feel that it is. It functions through the mind and everything, but the mind can cease to function, and that sense of I can still be there. So this is, at the end of this Vedanta process, what's left? Bliss. Now, how can there be bliss? And just some sense of freedom. Of course, a little bit of I has to be there also. A little bit of, beyond that, then we don't know anything. Then it just merged. So Thakur says, that which remains after everything is eliminated by the Vedantic process of not this, and which is of the nature of bliss, is Brahman. We eliminate that bliss, and it becomes just some dry, abstract concept. They use this term, Hegel. He had this concept of the absolute also, but there was nothing to it, dry. So they call it the bloodless absolute. Yeah, the Brahman of the Upanishads is full-blooded. Huh? It contains all the power and everything, and at the same time manifests within the heart. It's source of joy and bliss and everything. So it's not the same. It's just this philosophical concept. It's a living presence, and of course they have experienced these great souls. Suppose the husband of a young girl has come to his father-in-law's house and is seated in the drawing room with other young men of his age. The girl and her friends are looking at them through the window. Her friends do not know her husband and ask her, pointing to one young man, "Is that your husband?" "No," she answers, smiling. They point to another young man and ask if he is her husband. Again, she answers, "No." They repeat the question, referring to a third, and she gives the same answer. At last, they point to her husband and ask, "Is he the one?" What does she do? She says neither yes nor no, but only smiles and keeps quiet. Her friends realize that he is her husband. So that last final, after neti neti, I'm not the mind, I'm not the body, not the senses, not the intellect, not the personality, not the ego, none of these things. I can at the end finally say, I am the self. I can't even do that. Then just silence. What is. That's all. One becomes silent on realizing the true nature of Brahman. To M. Well, why do I talk so much? M. You talk in order to awaken the spiritual consciousness of the devotees. You once said that when an uncooked luchi is dropped into boiling ghee, it makes a sizzling noise. Yeah, this question came up so many times. This Dr. Sarkar especially, he would say to Ramakrishna, "Why do you talk so much?" Huh? So sometimes Thakur would say, because he would say that once we're filled with joy, filled with bliss, then no urge to talk or say anything. Because Thakur would mourn only for these things. So Thakur would say, yes, but sometimes when the water in the pitcher fills other cups, then you'll hear that same glub, glub, glub. You'll hear that sound again. Or he says the honey, the bee, when the bee is sipping honey, it doesn't have any need to buzz or do anything else. Sometimes just out of pure joy, it'll do the buzzing sound. The master began to talk to him about a Hazra. Hazra we've met many times. He's one of the many characters. There are a lot of character actors in this play, that they have their interesting roles to play. Master, do you know the nature of a good man? He never troubles others. He doesn't harass people. The nature of some people is such that when they go to a feast, they want special seats. A man who has true devotion to God never makes a false step, never gives others trouble for nothing. Now, this is another curious thing. And we come across this statement about never taking a false step many, many times, but it's always God realized soul. That after realizing that one person is incapable of doing anything harmful or doing anything wrong or making some moral mistake or anything after God realization, just like the expert dancer never misses a beat. Here, he doesn't say that it's just for the God realized soul. A man who has true devotion to God, man means a man or woman, who has true devotion to God never makes a false step. So this will be something for us. We can have real devotion. It's not the same as God realization, but we can.
False step means immoral act.
Immoral act, exactly what he's talking about. Hurting other people, criticizing people, hurting their feelings, stealing, any unethical thing like that. If we're real devotees that way, then we won't do any of these things. We had this memorial service for Suji the other day, and they were talking about, he was so simple and had great devotion that he couldn't lie. That it was just it wasn't in his DNA to tell a lie. They told one story that somebody came to the door, I think at Avon or something, to sell cosmetics and things like that. Asking is the lady of the house at home, something like that. And they were all hiding. They said, "Say no, say no." And he said, "I can't tell a lie. She's hiding behind the door." Very simple and everything. So, people who have that devotion, then what motive do they have for doing anything that'll be harmful? Only motive is to serve God and see God dwelling in others and everything. So the motive won't be there. It is not good to live in the company of bad people. Okay. Now, these seem like such obvious, simple statements, but Thakur is always talking about the contagious nature of good company and bad company, holy company and unholy company, and how it makes a big difference with regard to how established we are in spiritual life. And in the beginning, he always makes this distinction. In the beginning, we have to be extra careful. This is what he means by putting a hedge around the small plant, putting a fence around so that it can't be disturbed, to protect it, So we protect our spiritual life by trying to keep holy company and trying to avoid company of very worldly people or immoral, unethical people. Now, what do we do when we have our jobs, we have a family, friends, uh, we compromise a little. We compromise a little, try to do it just to the bare minimum, whatever we have to do to keep peace in the family and everything. Uh, and we're very aware at that time, and we really try to protect ourselves so that we don't pick up anybody's bad habits.
Swamiji, out of curiosity, this Hazra was such a pain, and he was a bad influence on the disciples also. Swamiji sometimes
Hmm.
Thakur didn't like Swamiji interacting too much with him. Why did he have to keep him there?
To thicken the plot. Thakur used to use that expression. Yeah, what is it? Lila postoi or something. Yeah. Uh, he took everything as the will of the Divine Mother, that everything serves a purpose. I mean, do we ever find him kicking anybody out or doing anything like that? I mean, there'll be times when, he'll make decisions and things, and these were people from his village, either his relatives or from nearby villages and things. And he knew their situations, he knew their families, he knew their faults. He accepted people. No, He was teaching us forbearance, and uh, when it got really bad with Hridoy, even then he didn't kick him out. And then he said it got so bad, the mother herself made that happen. But if we take everything as the will of mother, then we won't interfere that much.
So then we are bad company. We can say it's will of the mother that has sent this bad
No,
company.
he can say it. We can't say it. We have to know when we can emulate Thakur, and we have to know when we just stand back and admire him. Yeah. So
Radhu and Ma.
yeah, they understood the nature of Leela. Leela has a specific meaning with regard to the avatar, or with regard to any of these prophets or founders of religions, that everyone has a role to play. This is the feeling that they have, and even Hazra had a role to play. He could set a bad example also. That was something important, to set a bad example, so people would know that this is not that we shouldn't sit and show off that we're doing japa all of the time, and to have these other desires and things like that. So, and Thakur he liked these people. They were his own. Yeah, we shouldn't think that he didn't enjoy their company. And sometimes Hazra would come and fall down flat at his feet, and Thakur would say, "What is this?" The other day you said, "I don't know anything." And so it was a big play. He enjoyed that. Yeah, Ramlal. I mean, they were all connected. They were all village connected or family connected. So yeah.
It has more doya than maya.
Yeah, for Thakur. Yeah. Now, did he have any Maya? Did he have any special uh, fondness and affection for his village people and his relatives? Yes, just because he had a human mind, just to the minimal extent. It's natural. He said the avatar. They also have the human mind. We reading this Adhyatma Ramayana. Huh? And his question is, how can we look upon the Rama as so great when he wept for Sita? Huh? Well, Thakur always points to that example. Even the avatar has this human mind. So, he had a little special affection, I think, for the village people and those who, but he loved on the other hand, loved everyone. So he was a perfect example of real daya. But yes, did he have an ego? Yeah, trace. Did he ever have anger? Trace. Same thing. Did he ever have this Maya? Trace. Nothing to bind him or anything, but just to show his humanness. so we can identify with him. It is not good to live in the company of bad people. A man should stay away from them and thus protect himself. To M, isn't that so? M, yes, sir. The mind sinks far down in the company of the wicked, but it is quite different with the hero, as you say. Master, how is that? M, when a fire is feeble, it goes out when even a small stick is thrown into it. But a blazing fire is not affected even if a plantain tree is thrown into it. The tree itself is burnt to ashes. So that means that once we acquire that spiritual maturity and strength, we don't have to be so cautious. In the beginning, we have to be quite cautious. I always think of that statement that Swamiji made. He said, when I was young, I wouldn't walk on the same side of the street that the theater was on. He said, now I could live in a house of prostitutes. It wouldn't affect my mind at all. So what we do in the early, but we should never think that we've reached that high state, that we're free from any temptation or anything. We have to always remain a little cautious. The master asked him about his friend Hari Babu. We met him last week. He has come here to pay you his respects. He lost his wife long ago. Master Dahari. He was quite young. You remember, his wife died 12 years earlier, and he was 37, something like that, or 27. Huh? He was quite young. Let's see. Anyhow, it's okay. Master to Hari, what kind of work do you do? M. he didn't give him a chance to answer because it would be a little embarrassing. So, M. He has come here to pay you. Oh, sorry. Nothing in particular, but at home he takes good care of his parents and his brothers and sisters. Now remember, he's a young man. He should be doing something. Master with a smile. How is that? You were like Elder the pumpkin cutter. Kumro kata bok takur. Funny expression. You are neither a man of the world nor a devotee of God. That is not good. You must have seen the sort of elderly man who lives in a family and is always ready day or night to entertain the children. He sits in the parlor and smokes the hubble bubble. With nothing in particular to do, he leads a lazy life. Now and again, he goes to the inner court and cuts a pumpkin. For since women do not cut pumpkins, they send the children to ask him to come and do it. That is the extent of his usefulness. Hence his name, Elder the Pumpkin Cutter. Why don't the women cut pumpkins? Just too hard, or is there some superstition? Kumro. Yeah, but I think there's it's not considered proper somehow. Huh? Superstition.
What's the Bangla expression for elderly pumpkin cutting?
Kumro kata bok takur. Bok takur. Kumro means pumpkin. Pumpkin. Yeah, that's a different thing. Yeah. They'll use sometimes pumpkins, gourds, different types of things in place of animal sacrifice. Yeah, Durga Puja time. You must do this as well as that. This is Thakur talking to this Hari. Do your duties in the world and also fix your mind on the lotus feet of the Lord. Read books of devotion like the Bhagavata or the life of Chaitanya when you are alone and have nothing else to do. It was about 10 o'clock. Sri Ramakrishna finished a light supper of farina pudding. This is Shuji Payas, of farina pudding, because this was a standard meal at night, some luchis, and then at the end he couldn't swallow anything, so he had to take this. After saluting him, M and his friend took their leave. So this is the end of that day. We'll start next time, page 281, same chapter, Friday, September 7th, 1883. Om Niranjanam Nityamanantarupam Bhaktanukam Hatadavikraham Yeshavataram Bharanashamedhyam Tam Ramakrishnam Shirasanamama. We bow our heads before Sri Ramakrishna, who was stainless, of infinite nature, whose heart melts in sympathy for his devotees, who is an embodiment of the divine and the Supreme Lord, and ever worthy of our worship. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Peace, peace, peace.